The 19th Amendment by Brooklyn Barbara and Lexi Ebel. The 19th Amendment was a turning point in the history in our country. Here is a short clip from the movie Iron-Jawed Angels that demonstrates the struggle women had to endure in order to gain the right to vote.
The National Woman's Party will station sentinels at the White House gate from dawn until dusk every day until the Constitution of the United States is amended to ensure that every citizen, regardless of sex, is entitled to vote for the man who occupies...
Or woman.
Or woman.
The women's suffrage movement traces its beginnings to July 1848, when reformers Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott called the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. Women were left disappointed when the 14th Amendment, passed in 1868, granted former slaves their rights, with the right to vote being granted specifically to African American males. Women experienced struggles similar to those endured by African American citizens in attempting to exercise their fundamental right to vote. Equally important, this denial of the right to vote also demanded redress at the constitutional level. Without the right to vote, all other rights were immaterial and perhaps unattainable.
On the second day of the convention, men were invited to attend, and some 40 did, including the famous African-American abolitionist Frederick Douglass. That day, the Declaration of Sentiments and Grievances was adopted and signed by the Assembly. This document stated the goals of the attendees. The convention passed 12 resolutions, 11 unanimously, which called for specific equal rights for women. The 9th resolution in the Declaration of Sentiments called for women to attain the right to vote.
In 1869, Stanton teamed with Susan B. Anthony to organize the National Women's Suffrage Association. That same year, Lucy Stone and her husband Henry Brown Blackwell formed the American Women's Suffrage Association. In 1870, the 15th Amendment, which gave all men the right to vote, strengthened the cause of the two groups, which joined forces in 1890 under the National American Women's Suffrage Association. The suffragists distributed literature, organized meetings, made speeches, marched in parades, and lobbied in Washington, D.C., among other measures, in order to fight for their rights.
Some historians have argued that Congress finally approved the 19th Amendment in 1918, paving the way for its ratification because of its contributions that women made to World War I. Then thousands of women joined the workforce, and women's groups sent relief supplies to Europe. The 19th Amendment was finally ratified on August 18, 1920, after over 4 decades of struggle. As women's suffrage amendments have been introduced during every session of Congress since 1878. The 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution grants women suffrage or the right to vote. Section 1 stated, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex." And Section 2 stated that Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
The 19th Amendment resulted in many positive repercussions. It is considered a landmark victory for the women's movement during the era of first-wave feminism, a period spanning from the mid-19th to early 20th century, when activists focused on gaining legal rights. Suffrage helped lead to later advances during the period of second-wave feminism, 1960 to 1980, when activists focused on equality in the home, reproductive rights, and economic advancement in the workplace. It also facilitated advances in third-wave feminism, dating from 1990 through the early 21st century as well.
All in all, by virtue of the most preeminent and empowering source of law in the hierarchy of this government's legitimacy, physical characteristics such as gender, race, or skin color would therefore no longer be tolerated as barriers to the right to vote.